Get ready for some upbeat banter, plenty of laughs, and a whole lot of love for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 167 of Buds and Blue Jays, your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm Jesse Burrell, welcoming back Riley McConnell, who is feeling better today. Glad to have you back on the show. And we are live. We're on Facebook, Twitter. I think we're live on YouTube. Not certain. We can check in and see if we are there. So if you're watching the video, please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. And if you are listening to us on the podcast side, 5-star review. Tell a friend. This is the place to be for all Blue Jays related content as we get into the offseason. Now, Riley, we just watched the Houston Astros take 2 out of 3 games against our Toronto Blue Jays, and boy, did it not look good. Our offense looked futile. We got no hit in a game, and Davis Schneider, who saved us in game 2, didn't even get to play in game 3. How are we feeling, man, after the series against the Astros?
I mean, Jesse, this was an abysmal series. I mean, we might have gotten swept if it weren't for a late inning heroic type at bat for a guy who leads our team in home runs. We'll get to that and why that's important, Jesse. Could it have helped us today? I'm really not too sure. I mean, a lot more, dude. We could have had the 0-4 Red Sox come in late game and it still might not
have wouldn't have mattered. Yeah.
No, it was an out of control series. We got outpitched, outscored. We got outclassed, simply outplayed. This cannot happen for us to be a successful ball club. Houston's got a good team. So do we. We did not show it one bit in this series.
Yeah, honestly, we got lucky that we did not get swept by the Houston Astros in this series. Thank you, Davis Schneider, for single-handedly winning us that game. Let's get into the recaps here before we dive in deeper into this game. Game 1, the Blue Jays lose this game 10-0. And yes, if you watched it, the Blue Jays got no hit in this one. It was the 8th time in franchise history. Most recently, the Detroit Tigers had a combined no-hitter against us, and the most by an individual pitcher since Justin Verlander did it in 2019. George Springer had a walk in the first and a walk in the 9th, and that was it. And it wasn't even that we got unlucky, an expected batting average of only 100 for that game either. The Jays pitching didn't go well. Bowden Francis gave up 3 home runs, and the bullpen gave up 2 more, and it was never really close in this one. In game 2 of the series, the Jays snuck out a victory. They beat the Astros 2-1. The Jays threatened to score early, but Bo Bichette got thrown out at the plate to end the inning. Jose Barrios wasn't at his best, but he was efficient, and he pitched into the 7th inning, giving up only a solo home run to Altuve. The bullpen was able to escape some jams, leaving it to a 1-run game in the 9th when, with 2 out after a single by Justin Turner, Davis Schneider had a go-ahead 2-run home run off Josh Hader, and Chad Green was able to work it out in the bottom half to secure the win for the Blue Jays. And the game that just finished up here, it was an 8-0 final for the Astros. The Blue Jays didn't start Davis Schneider after his heroics in game 2, and the offense was lackluster. They were able to draw some walks off Javier in that bullpen, but were only able to muster 1 hit, which was a Dalton Varsho bloop double. Chris Bassett gave up a lot of hard contact, particularly to Yordan Alvarez, and the bullpen didn't do their job either, and the Jays are shut out for the 2nd time in 7 games to begin the season. After the series, the Jays are now 3-4. We're 3 games back at the 6-1 New York Yankees, and we're tied with the Rays for last in the AL East, Riley. A lot of talking points coming out of this series. Take it away. The floor is yours. Where would you like to go first?
I mean, there's so many places we could go. If Isaac was here, he kind of said to start with this. I think, Jesse, we should start with the discussion of Davis Schneider. Obviously, it was a very big at-bat in the clutch in game 2. The only reason we didn't get swept in this series, I'm going to also add this because we probably won't talk about him a lot this episode. Justin Turner did have a single where he was on base for that home run. He had 2 doubles in that ball game as well. It seemed to be I know we had 8 hits it was, but for extra base hits, he did try and get the ball rolling. Of course, he only scored off that home run later in the ball game. So, us in the clutch, just it has not worked out this season. It didn't work out last season, the year before. It's a really, really bad series on paper. And then we're going to talk about it. And it wasn't a good series, but why is Davis Schneider not taking, I don't care if it's lefty or righty. He should be having more at bats. It's proven. I mean, hey, it's Ernie Clement, cool IKF. Like, I get it. He gets bad on ball. Maybe that's good for this lineup. It's kind of not at points. Like, I would like to see Davis Schneider get more at bats. You got to
Mhm.
play who's hitting the ball right now. No one on the Jays is hitting the ball. Get Davis Schneider in the lineup. It's gonna help us.
Yeah, Riley. Like, I love analytics. I'm deep into the stats as anyone, and usually I'd be all for getting the left-handed guy into the right-handed against the right-handed pitcher. But boy, man, there's something in baseball about riding the hot hand, and your team needs power. Your team needs thump. Davis Schneider is going to be that guy to do it, and I really, really, really wanted to see him in the lineup here today. I think that was a mistake. But I mean, anytime you can get Kevin Kiermaier, who's hitting what 0.74 so far this season. I know the defense is still there, but like, you could have moved Varsho to center, had Davis Schneider start tonight. And look, we still probably lose the game anyway, but it would have at least provided some thump, and maybe you get him to potential to keep going. I want to add on Davis Schneider before we move on here. That home run he hit off Josh Hader was, I think, 430 some feet, maybe 423 feet. It was the longest hit ball that Josh Hader has given up on his slider in his career. He has not given up a ball that far that Davis Schneider just hit. Very good piece of hitting for him. And if you percolate Davis Schneider's stats so far, over 650 games, he's a 53 home run hitter for Davis Schneider. Now, I know that's not how it's going to be the full time, but like, look, you have that guy on your bench, play him more. We can live with the strikeouts.
That's just the thing. Is he the guy that we want to play off our bench, or on this team, is he an everyday player? I know that he had a tough time tracking a ball in left field, in probably the worst ballpark to
Yeah, that
track a
was tough.
ball in left field. And I know there were things about it. It's like, does not a lot of average defensive outfielders make that catch? You can call Davis Schneider what you will. We're at a point now, and it is early in the year, but we need to get something going, because being shut out twice in a 3-game set and 9 hits. Like, I get that the guys drew their walks, but no one's coming up clutch. No one is driving in those runs. And it wasn't just the top of the order. Yes, Springer with the 2 walks in game 1, but in the game that just finished up, I mean, the walks were 1 through 9. I mean, we had the guys on base. The lineup was being turned over, and then there was no George Springer driving in the runs. There was no Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Bo Bichette was not there.
Vlad and Bo both, I think, only had 1 hit the whole series. Like, that can't do. They're supposed to be your best hitters. You need offensive thump. I understand Houston has good pitching, but they both need to be better, which is concerning, I guess, because Bo Bichette did have the stiff neck, and Vlad looked so good in the Tampa series. I really thought a big series was coming. That needed to be better going on. And my gripe here too is getting no hit is embarrassing, yes, but also, like, you really want to see the Blue Jays adjust to a changeup. Blanco was throwing so much of that pitch, like, couldn't at some point some hitter make an adjustment, sit on it, and, like, if he throws you a fastball, so be it, and just try to make contact? I don't know. I didn't like the approach the boys are taking at the plate.
You can look at that 2 ways, because you will see it's a track record on some decent young arms that the scouting report isn't a lot on them. I think this is his 10th or 11th career start, Jesse. And honestly, it could go 1 or 2 different ways. You either capitalize heavy, or the scouting report is so thin on the guy. And he's hitting his spot. He's hitting his locations, which I think is exactly what happened in this game. Like, nothing against him, but our hitters were not on the ball. And I think
He pitched the game of his life.
Bo Bichette not in the lineup. Maybe has a small kind of asterisk on the no hit. I mean, not really, but for the Blue Jays watching that, you would think maybe Bo would be the guy. He certainly wasn't the guy who actually got hits in this series. I mean, I think that's single-handedly belonged to Turner, and it's not like those hits turned into anything.
All right, well, let's move on to something else, because we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time, because there were a lot of storylines coming out of this series against the Astros. And I want to start here, Riley, with a little bit of a game that will lead to some talking points. And I'm going to give you 2 scenarios, and both of the answers to these are going to be a number. So I want you to tell me which one is higher. You got it?
Yep.
All right, so the first one. Which number is higher? The amount of beers Riley McConnell could crush over a long weekend, or how many ground ball outs the Toronto Blue Jays hit into this series?
Well, I mean, I had a double long weekend, and I was feeling not well. I mean, I won't say I had the bud bug, because I was actually pretty sick. but I mean, I had
Sure.
4-day weekend, but we've grounded into a lot of double plays. Maybe on a normal weekend, more double plays, because I know we had a lot, but I know that we haven't notched 30 yet this year.
Yeah, that's just in terms of double plays. I was talking about physical ground ball outs. The Blue Jays had
Oh,
27 ground ball
you're
outs through the first
close.
two
You're
games,
close
and they had
then.
a bunch more in this. There goes. There you go. I guess if in terms of double plays too, now that you brought that up, the Jays hit into 10 double plays this season. It is most in the American League, one behind the Miami Marlins. Like Kirk's hit into two, Springer's hit into two, Ernie Clementis hit into two. Like this was an issue the Blue Jays had last year, and we were hoping that, hey, we'll see an increased launch angle, or the new hitting approach Don Mattingly has given this team will prevent us from hitting the ball on the ground so much. Well, that's simply not true. We are fifth last, I believe, in line drive rate so far this season, and the ground ball rate has been soaring as well. It looks like the exact same offense that we had that performed subpar in the 2023 season. It just looks like we're getting it again.
I mean, and we didn't even perform subpar. I mean, I don't even know what the OPS plus was as a team in this series, but it was abysmal. I'm going to say, if I was to guess, I would put it in the 20s or 30s.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up, but I'd agree it is somewhere
It's
around
not
there.
it's not very good, Jesse. Don't bother looking it up. We just try and move past this and hope that the trend kind of changes a little bit.
All right, I got another. Which number is higher here? And you guys listening at home can play along with us as well. Which number is higher? The number of times that George Springer has swung and missed at a pitch outside of the zone this year, or the number of stolen base attempts the Blue Jays have had this year, Riley? First, do you want to take a guess at which number is which, and then take a stab, obviously, at which number do you think would be higher?
All right, stolen base attempts. So
Mm-hmm.
you actually informed me of another one, and a hit and run. A hit and run is not a steal attempt, correct?
Correct. It's not. Yeah.
So I'm George
Unless
Springer.
he's successfully safe. But yeah.
Yes, George Springer hitting pitches out of the zone is slightly higher. Or sorry, George Springer swinging at pitches out of the zone slightly higher than stolen base attempts is my guess.
Correct. You would be correct. It was closer coming into this game today, though, as the Blue Jays did get their first stolen base attempt of the season. Kevin Kiermaier successfully stole second base in this game. The Blue Jays went 6 straight games without a stolen base attempt, and thanks to our friend Scott Carson, who a big shout out to him, who follows us on Twitter, tweeted out this is the third time in franchise history the Blue Jays went 6 straight games to begin a year without a stolen base attempt. So that's wild. But coming into the game today, George Springer had only swung and missed at one pitch outside of the zone, which I thought was fantastic. He was swinging at the pitches in there, and he was taking the pitches outside of the zone. He did have, I think, 3, though, swings and misses on pitches outside of the zone today. Not what you'd like to see. But I brought that up because I wanted to talk a little bit about George Springer, who is one of my thumbs up for this series here, making his return back to Houston. Not only he didn't hit home runs, but in game 2, he cut a ball off in the gap and was able to throw out Chas McCormick at second base. I wanted to give him props for that because that won't show up in your box score, and that was a very good play for George Springer. He also reached 10 years of MLB service. So congratulations, George Springer. I don't remember exactly what perks that gives you, but I think it gives you part of the pension. It pretty much locks you up for life financially. Not that Springer was struggling for money, but it's a milestone that MLB players go for. So I wanted to give George Springer a hearty thumbs up for that. Do you have a thought on George Springer, Riley?
I mean, kind of cool he got to do that in Houston, let's be honest. Had a lot of good years with those Houston Astros clubs.
Yep.
It's interesting that play that you bring up where he did cut that ball off, because when that did happen, in my head, my initial thought, Jesse, was I wasn't sure who had the better angle to throw at second base.
Okay.
But McCormick was running to second
Yeah.
base. It was Chas McCormick. I thought in my head, ooh, better let Kiermaier field that ball. But nope, George Springer took charge of that. I mean, it erased the doubt in my mind. He threw an absolute beauty one hop to Bo, made a great tag. It was a very close play. Springer, though, I think right field has been very good to him since becoming, moving over to that position pretty much full time. And I thought he did fantastic, man. In the as far as a lot of things goes so far this season, obviously did not get the bat going. He's drawn his walks. Like, I get that the defense is good. We hope that the bat comes around. And happy. More like congratulations of 10 years of service. You know what was going to happen. George Springer's a great ball player.
Yep, absolutely. Glad to see it. I hope for big things more from George Springer, especially if the changes he's made to his plate approach can take us a long way. Riley, I want to play another game here to break up the thing, and this one is called Fooled You, and it's where I'm going to say something that happened from the Blue Jays this spring, and we're going to see if it was just a complete fake out, and this is who they actually are. And the first one here, Riley, Kevin Kiermaier. And my point is, I think he fooled us this spring. Remember how we said he wanted to hit for more power? I'm pretty sure he hit for 4 home runs so far this spring. I could be wrong, but I think he has exactly 1 hit so far this season. And I'm starting to think he shouldn't be our everyday regular center fielder. I understand the defense is so good, and I understand his floor is high because of his defense. But boy, if he's got just 1 hit in the 6 games he's played and he's swinging at like 44% of the pitches outside of the zone, we need more from that from our center fielder, Riley. Did he fool us with his spring performance?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's just kind of look at this series alone. Kevin Kiermaier, one of the most valuable defensive center fielders in all of baseball, has been for a decade or so. It's really hard to defend against fly ball outs, line drive outs deep in the outfield. When Houston went off and they hit 9 home runs against us in this series, so that kind of eliminates that. And then looking sort of just at the bat and what he did in the series or since the start of the year. I mean, we knew he's never been a guy who has hit for really anything. He's made the MLB because of his defense. I mean, the stolen bases never really jumped at the page. He's never been a Kenny Lofton type guy on the base paths. Certainly the defense is number one. Jesse, you saw it in this series. I mean, he got out-muscled, outworked. I mean, when he's matched up against a lefty, man, there are some bad at-bats. I mean, the fastballs that run in on the hands, the breaking pitches that move away. I mean, these are not great at-bats that he's taking, swinging at pitches he shouldn't, and then taking ones that he shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. He had some bad swings on some changeups this series too. Hey, it could just be a cold spell. Everyone goes through it, but when he's getting older on the wrong side of 30, it might be tough to see. The same theme, I guess, goes for these next 2 players who both had great springs, but have both looked quite terrible so far to begin the season. The first one is Dalton Varsho, who we were talking up all spring because he made changes to his swings path, and then all of a sudden he gets into the regular season and he looks like the exact same Dalton Varsho we had last year, swinging under the ball too much, getting way too many pop-ups, not driving the ball with authority. Even his double today was just a bloop. And I don't think Dalton Varsho has a single RBI yet this season, which is saying something from a guy who's hitting 4th or 5th regularly in your lineup. And then Alejandro Kirk, the guy who's hitting right after Dalton Varsho in this lineup, I think his spring was a mirage as well. He looks like the same guy, weak contact to second base, lazy fly balls to right field. And his always thing was like, okay, I'm really good at having more walks and strikeouts, but that's not the case early in this season either. And plus, he got a little lazy throwing the ball back as Kyle Tucker was able to move up on a base, and like there seems to be out on Alejandro Kirk a little bit. So with those 2 players, Riley, Varsho or Kirk, how are we feeling about them so far to start?
I'll be brief on. I don't like to pick on Kirk, so I'll be brief on him. But I mean, he missed. I think it was game 2. Same at bat, 2 breaking pitches that were in the strike zone that he swung and missed at over the top. And that was not a good at bat. I will say this: the strike zone maybe a little bit off in game 3. Could have had a walk, drawn the count a little deeper. I'm not really gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because he's not swinging the bat. A notorious guy to ground into a ton of double plays. And I don't want to pick on Kirk too much. Jansen is on the IL. I want to have faith in him because we know Servin's probably not going to be the catcher to carry us. I have to put a little more faith in Kirk. I'm more disappointed in Varsho because of the spring he had. And I thought we were going to get a different guy. Kind of a shorter slapstick approach to the ball, which I think would be a more complete thing. I mean, he's a muscular guy. He's not very tall. I think he's kind of like 5 foot, maybe single digit number, strong guy. Good foot speed. I thought he kind of came out in spring, showed that he could take a short approach to the ball, pull a couple good ones if he felt like he needed to, but almost be a more complete hitter. And I think that's what the Jays need. And Varsho has he hasn't got the bat on ball that he showed in the spring. And that's really disappointing because I thought, I mean, at opening day, he was fifth in our lineup, and I had high hopes. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I think that this guy is going to, hit maybe for not a tremendous batting average, Jesse. You can't talk about tremendous batting averages and say Dalton Varsho. But I
270, 280 would be great if he can get there.
If 260 would be wonderful.
Sure.
But I think we're going to get, dude, and I'm not even going to talk about what's going on in Arizona right now. But Varsho has really got to pick up his game, man. I mean, we got him not for his defense. We signed Kiermaier because of his defense. We got Dalton Varsho because we thought that, hey, 27 home runs for the Arizona Diamondbacks in his first real complete season. There is some potential in that, and he has not showcased that he can reach even that level that he played in. Either you want to call it his first complete season, sophomore season, whatever. I don't know where his rookie eligibility landed, but we need a ton more for him. And a different approach at the plate is probably going to help that. I don't know if we're going to see that, sadly.
I really hope we do, because the Blue Jays need offensive production from Dalton Varsho in a big way. Riley, I have some other notes that caught my attention in this Houston Astros series. The first one, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa pitched an inning through 7 pitches, 3 up, 3 down. I believe it's the 5th time Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has pitched in his career. So that was cool. Honestly, probably one of the better Blue Jays pitchers in this series if I go through and look at it. We already mentioned Justin Turner. I wanted to give him a little shout out. He did reach base 4 times with 2 doubles, and he's impressed me so far this spring. He's been really good at pulling his hands in and hitting that spin. The fastballs he's been hitting haven't been elite hard-throwing fastballs, but if he can still hit that 91, 92 mile per hour fastball, Justin Turner is going to be just fine. Is going to put up big numbers. And the Blue Jays went for the 5-man infield in Game 2, which I actually thought was a very good move. I wanted to see more of this. The Jays were down to 1, knowing likely at the time you probably weren't getting 2 off Josh Hader. Boy, were they wrong, because turns out they can. But I liked the idea in the bottom of the 8th of bringing in the 5th-man outfield to try to run the tying run at the plate. Ultimately, it didn't matter, as Tim Meza walked the guy on 5 pitches. But I like the play and the call from John Schneider there. Those 3 things, Riley: Justin Turner, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and the 5-man infield. Do you have a thought on any of those?
Well, I think IKF certainly. I don't really care. When you pitch a position player, you're not in a good way. So there's not much to say about that.
Yeah, you already lost.
other than he probably pitched better than Wes Parsons in this series. That's a whole other thing. Justin, I think if a guy has pleasantly surprised us, it's been Justin Turner. Boy, did he kind of shut you up in a way. I mean, he's a long way from being DFA'd right now with the amount of power. Hey, Jesse, I'm not trying to sewer you. That was your bold take. And I'm going to stand by my co-host and say that you weren't completely off, because we had the same kind of talks. But I mean, there's sometimes though where Justin Turner does not look like a seasoned hitter at the plate. And then I think that there's a stroke of luck that goes in. I will say this: I don't think there's a lot of times this year, and shut me up, prove me wrong, Justin Turner, that you're going to see a ton of 3-hit performances by him. And that's pretty much it. 5-man infield. Hey, I like the call. John Schneider needs to kind of prove his worth as a manager, I think, and he's got a long way. I think the leash is long. It's not like he's in any sort of jeopardy. But I like when he is right. I don't want to see anything unfortunate happen to him as far as, his job being in jeopardy. But it has not looked good to start this year.
Yeah, we're still a ways away from the should be fired John Schneider comments yet. But if the Jays keep playing like this and their offensive lackluster, and he keeps making some poor decisions, that might be something we have to have a conversation on later in the line. A few more things, Riley, to take away from this series. Bo Bichette bounced another throw to first base. That is 3 now on the season that he's had. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., again, maybe could have scooped it, but ultimately didn't. Don Mattingly shaved his beard, which he was the talk of spring for a while, that he had that. And I think maybe, hey, you get no hit. Maybe you try to mix things up. Maybe he's got to try something else now. Maybe put on a fake mustache or something, because getting 1 hit is not significantly better. And if we've been keeping track of the Blue Jays with runners in scoring position and their stolen base attempts so far in this series, Blue Jays went 1 for 1 on their only stolen base attempt. That was Kiermaier in Game 3. And in terms of runners in scoring position, well, Game 1, 0 for 0. We didn't have a single guy in runners in scoring position. Game 2, we only had 1. We went 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position. And today, 0 for 5, Riley. That is a clean sweep with no hits with runners in scoring position for the Toronto Blue Jays this series. Ho-hum. Any quick thoughts there? Or can we move on to the rotation?
Let's move on. Let's talk about our pitchers. We know where our offense came from because the list is so short. I'll say it again for those of you who don't remember. Davis Schneider, thumbs up for you for actually producing in the clutch. Jesse, let's talk about our pitchers because I know that we're probably going to spend a little bit of time on them, not too much time, but I mean, we haven't even talked about the starters.
Yes, so let's do that right now. Game 1 was Bowden Francis. He got hit hard, 5 1/3 innings pitched, 10 hits, 7 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 Ks. I think he pitched better than the line showed. Buck Martinez was going on about bad locations and poor stuff. And yeah, he put one down the pipe for Jeremy Pena that hit out, but I thought overall he was okay. I think he threw a lot of strikes. I thought, 30% whiff rate. I'm more encouraged than discouraged from Bowden Francis, but that fastball needs to be sitting more 96, not so much 93. Jose Barrios, 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. He had trouble throwing the slurve for strikes in this one. Only 7 of his 27 slurves were strikes, but he battled, gutsy, got through it. And then Chris Bassett today, 4 1/3 innings pitched, 9 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks on 91 pitches. He had bases loaded twice against him in the first and the third, was able to escape both times, gave up a lot of hard contact, particularly to Yordan Alvarez. And he hasn't been able to go 5 innings yet in a start and has allowed 7 or more hits on both of his starts for Chris Bassett. Have a thought on any of those 3 starting pitchers, Riley?
Yeah, I think pitch count, it came down to the difference between Barrios's outing and Chris Bassett's was Barrios really was cruising, it seemed, for a bit as far as the amount of pitches he was throwing.
Yeah, very efficient for Jose Barrios.
Dude, Chris Bassett was at, the game started and all of a sudden, it might not even been the 4th. Like Chris Bassett was almost at 80 pitches. Could have been the 4th inning, but it was still shallow in that game. And I think Bowden Francis's line, you're probably right, doesn't look as good as what he actually showed. I think it's too bad that our bullpen, and I think it was Nate Pearson who came in and kind of costed Bassett those earned runs, which sucks.
Yep.
It's a team sport at the end of the day. I don't think Bassett did that bad. I mean, it's certainly not one of his better outings. And I like, to be honest, as far as the stuff goes between Bassett and Barrios, I think Bassett definitely ran into trouble, but proved twice the bases loaded, got out of those jams. I mean, to me, that's pretty important to see early in the year, still kind of working out the kinks. It was really good to see Bassett actually work out of those. And unfortunately, gets yanked out of the game. And then Nate Pearson gets hit around, and then the earned runs go on his line. Barrios worked extremely efficiently. I think that's really good. I would love to see Blue Jays pitchers in general go deep into ball games this year. That has not happened yet, especially in this series. Moving forward, though, I think with a little bit of luck, 7 innings for both guys are, just basically a next start away.
Yeah, we're not too far away. They're still kind of ramping up their pitch counts going into the coming out of spring training here. I also wanted to point out Jose Barrios, because I'm really watching how much he throws that cutter. He only threw it once on his opening day start against Tampa. He threw it 3 times here, got 2 foul balls, and then he got an out with it. I want to see Jose Barrios use that cutter just a little bit more in his start. Bowden Francis looked good. And yeah, Chris Bassett, I will say the velocity was starting to creep back up a little bit for Chris Bassett because it was down in the spring. It was down in his first start. Still not quite at the level he was at last year, but it is starting to tick up. And I think once that velocity ticks back up, Chris Bassett will be back to the guy we expect from Chris Bassett. But moving on to the bullpen, this is our call to the bullpen, and there were some interesting things. Riley, you already touched on Nate Pearson, who the only note I have on him was, gave up more hits, and had bad fastball command yet again. More of the same for Nate Pearson. I think when our bullpen guys get healthy, he's probably on a one-way trip back down to Buffalo. But I wanted to throw some love to Jimmy Garcia here, who in that game too, Jose Barrios pitched into the 7th and got hit around a little bit. Jimmy Garcia comes in to face runners on the corners with nobody out. He's able to retire the next 3 batters without giving up a run. The Blue Jays do not come back and win that game if it's not for what Jimmy Garcia did in the 7th. And I want to give John Schneider some props too for putting in what maybe is our best reliever in at that time and not saving him for a potential save situation that might not come. So shout out to Jimmy Garcia, gets another thumbs up from us.
He might be one of the only few. I mean, I guess Chad Green went into the game and preserved as well. Whatever. I mean, listen, with Swanson and Romano not being there, this is a perfect time for Garcia to step up, and he has been. The velocity
Yep.
looks great. The command even looks better than it did last year. Like, I was a little bit worried coming into the year what kind of Garcia we were going to get. Relief pitchers are funny in a lot of ways. You can be stricken with a bad outing early in the year, can really screw up your numbers for the rest of the year. But as an individual performance, to pitch in a high leverage situation the way he did, absolutely fantastic. You can't ask for anything more. He is simply our best relief pitcher, our best guy out of the bullpen right now, and he proved it.
Yep, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him going forward. I hope he's used quite a bit in the Yankees series. Some more thoughts on the bullpen. Genesis Cabrera served his 2-game suspension, so he got the appeal. It went down from 3 games to 2. He did pitch in game 1, and he was brought in to face Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, 2 lefties. He walked one and gave up a home run to the other, so tough look for Genesis Cabrera. Maybe he had other stuff on his mind. Understandable. And going to our other lefty in our bullpen, Tim Meza, his velocity was down again. In game 1, he only threw 7 pitches, all sliders, didn't throw a single fastball. Came into the game today, he threw a fastball on his first pitch, but it was 91 and didn't have that sharp 2-seam movement on it either. 3 pitches later, he gives up a home run to Yordan Alvarez, lefty on lefty. I think Tim Meza's got to be hurt. Like, the guy just doesn't lose velocity, lose zip like that if his mechanics are purely sound, unless he is hurt. Or maybe he's just not ramped up from spring training yet. I don't know. It's one or the other. I am genuinely concerned about Tim Meza, but those two guys, Tim Meza, Genesis Cabrera, do you have a thought? I take not. He froze. He didn't like the the comps on Tim Meza there. The only other point to the bullpen I had is Trevor Richards came in and he threw his changeup. I want to see his changeup go really good. Riley, you're back. Do you have a thoughts on
I have a thought on Meza. Yeah, I think he's
go ahead.
dealing with some. I think he's dealing with something because he didn't look good in the spring and has not really showed it, which is unfortunate. I know we and a lot of others like Tim Meza, and I think that he's a great kind of specialist. But yeah, we need to see better things. And with Cabrera coming back, I mean, what is Meza's role going to be looking like? Because if we only need one lefty really going kind of every other game, then yeah, we're definitely going to use one or the other, whoever's hot. And as much as I haven't loved Trevor Richards, I mean, at least he's kind of kept hitters at bay. I don't expect a ton, but at least he's better than already half the field in our bullpen right now. And I will take that for the meantime.
If Tim Meza is hurt long-term and Genesis Cabrera proves not to be effective, the next best lefty relievers in our system are like Brandon Littell, who we saw a good chunk of this spring, Jimmy Burnett, Brandon Eishart. Like, I like Mason Fluharty, but he's starting the season with New Hampshire. I don't think he's pitched yet since spring training ended. The Jays could be in trouble looking for left-handed relievers. The good news is they like Eric Swanson's splitter against them, and they like Trevor Richards' changeup against the lefties. I also want to point out, too, one of the keys for Trevor Richards being successful is he needs to throw that changeup more for strikes. Last season, when he went on that 8-week stretch where Trevor Richards was really unhittable, he threw his changeup for strikes quite frequently. It dipped in the second half, and that's when Trevor Richards' numbers dipped in the second half. And in this series, 8 changeups in game 1, only 2 in the zone. In game 3 of the series where he pitched 9 changeups, only 3 for strikes. I want to watch for that from Trevor Richards every time he makes an appearance going forward. Riley, I have injury updates, and then I have an update from down on the farm. Is there anything else you want to throw up here before we get out of here?
No, not with the bullpen anyways. I'll save my overall my thoughts, probably keep them to myself. I've kind of crapped on the guys a lot. It wasn't a good series, Jesse. We're going to move forward at this point in the episode and in the season as well.
Love that. So in terms of injury updates, Bo Bichette had the cranky neck, but he was back in the lineup the last 2 days. Didn't hit well. He got 1 hit, but seems to be okay. Joey Votto has started doing some defensive work, so he's working his way back. Jordan Romano is slated to get back off a mound, I think today. I think he did that today. Eric Swanson threw a bullpen session, apparently felt good. Alek Manoah threw a simulated game yesterday. He threw 48 pitches, had 6 strikeouts. The velocity and command were apparently good. The next step for him, he is going to start a 4-inning start for the Dunedin Blue Jays. And once he does that, Riley, because he's not demoted to the minor leagues, he's officially on the injured list. He has 30 days before he's got to come up and join the big club. So the clock will start ticking for Alek Manoah on whether or not he comes back and join this team. And on the farm, I don't have much, but I did want to point out that Yariel Rodriguez made his debut for the Buffalo Bisons and looked very sharp. 4 no-hit innings in his debut, 55 pitches. I think a lot of people are saying, even John Schneider himself said he is a major league pitcher. He will be here sooner rather than later. It's just about getting reps in for Yariel Rodriguez. So, and Danny Jansen caught Manoah too. I didn't mention that, but he was catching and will be back with the big club hopefully soon. Any takeaways on any of those?
Well, those are some huge takeaways, actually, because I love to hear anything about Jano, but let's not bury the lead with we have 2 young, good pitchers, Yariel Rodriguez and Alek Manoah. One, we thought we knew what we got, and Rodriguez is still really undecided on what his role is with the team. Dude, you said it. I mean, the clock will be ticking, and the clock's already been ticking on Alek Manoah and what he can do, man. It's unbelievable, the roller coaster ride he's been on. I really hope he can put it together. Jesse, I'm just not that optimistic, man. It'll be really refreshing to see Rodriguez come up with the big club and be impactful right off the get-go. I think that's what this team needs. I think that he'll really turn some heads. A lot of, like, it's funny, you get an unexpected guy, Davis Schneider, the way he turned heads last year. I mean, maybe Rodriguez, maybe not the same numbers that equivalent in pitchers, because you would almost have to certainly basically throw 8 shutout innings of 2-hit ball to kind of repeat that. But I really like the possibility to have the versatile arm that he is. And then, I'm really less optimistic about Alek Manoah.
Well, we'll see. Wait and see. We got more storylines. The Toronto Blue Jays now are on a flight. They are going from Houston to New York. They will have an off day tomorrow, which if there's any team in baseball that needs an off day early in the season, it's probably the Toronto Blue Jays. We will face old friend Marcus Stroman leading off the series against the New York Yankees. And look, if we win this series 2 out of 3, we have a 500 road trip coming back home for a home opener in Seattle. Riley, do you have a player you think is going to perform a pick to click, if you will, in this upcoming series against the New York Yankees? Okay, because I can give mine first here, and I will do just that. I really think the Yankees are going to go out, and they might struggle a little bit. I really do like the Blue Jays' chances to really hit the ground running. It's time for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to take this team on his back and have a big series. I'm predicting 2 home runs from Vlad at the Bronx this weekend. Riley, how about you?
So unfortunately, thank you for taking the lead on that, Jesse. Unfortunately, weather in Southern Ontario right now, not well, as we're getting a winter mix, if you want to call it that. So internet hasn't been great. Jesse, what I hope and what I think are 2 different things, because I could give you a long list of players.
Sure, of course.
Let's what I think is get Davis Schneider into that lineup and watch him have a 2-hit performance and hit in the clutch again. I think that is going to happen. And I also think that low-key Bo Bichette is well on his way to accumulate a ton of hits. I think he's going to be a guy in this series. Maybe not the big hits, but when you look back at it, you'll go, wow, Bo, 6 hits in the series. I mean, that will look good. Whether they drive in runs or he's driven in, I just think Bo is due for a string of hits. And I think it's coming in this series against New York.
All right, you have my vote as well. I hope on Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon when we recap that series that we are talking about a Blue Jays series win and a lot of good things. For Riley McConnell, I'm Jesse Burrell. Thank you all for joining us on this episode. Hopefully the Blue Jays offense can get going. We will be back Sunday to recap the New York Yankees series. In the meantime, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find Buds and Blue Jays on Spotify, on iTunes, on anywhere you can find your podcasts. You can find Riley and I. Please like and subscribe to the channel and leave us a 5-star review and all that good stuff. Until then, we'll see you guys on Sunday. Let's go Blue Jays.
Thanks, guys.